Zhao Hai nodded, continuing Grandpa Green. Then how do we settle meat right now? Don't tell me we didn't buy some magic beasts to rear. Green didn't know why Zhao Hai was asking about this, but believed it was because he was afraid he wouldn't have meat to eat, and so at once said, "Young master need not worry, we've acquired some blue-eyed rabbits and long-haired pigs to provide meat. There is no need for young master to worry about having meat to eat." Zhao Hai didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that Adam's character really wasn't up to much before. He wanted to find a kind that reproduced quickly and wasn't picky about food to raise, but Green thought he was worrying about having meat to eat, all this and that. At this time, Marin and Meg brought in a few trays. There was some food on the trays, but a lot simpler than Zhao Hai's meal. Zhao Hai glanced at his own plate. His plate had white bread, 2 eggs, a piece of meat, as well as some vegetables. Under the present circumstances it was quite good. But on the plates of Green and the others was only black bread and some vegetables. What eggs, meat, there was basically none. This made Zhao Hai's heart ache, but he didn't say anything, only picking up his knife and fork to eat. When Green and the others saw him eating, they also began to eat. Green and the others didn't eat quickly, only Blockhead and Rockhead did. Moreover, looking at it, the food Marin gave them was much better than the others. He had to admit that Marin's food tasted good. Even though it wasn't as tasty as Chinese cuisine, producing such flavor with such simple ingredients was already quite astonishing. Zhao Hai nodded with satisfaction, swiftly eating the meal before him. Even though he was unaccustomed to eating Western food with knife and fork, he really was a bit hungry, and so ate quickly. But when he had finished eating, Green and the others had also finished, all of them standing there watching him. Zhao Hai wasn't very comfortable with this, but he also knew that such things wouldn't change overnight. After everything was eaten, Marin and Meg put the dishes in order, then served a pot of something. One sniff at the pot told Zhao Hai that this pot held Kasia. Kasia was similar to coffee, and something the great continental nobles were most fond of. Green hurriedly poured him a cup. Zhao Hai drank one mouthful. The flavor was similar to coffee, and he couldn't help nodding. Picking up the pot, he poured a cup for Green, then pointed to a chair by the side. "Grandpa Green, you sit. I have something to consult you about. Come, have some Kasia." Green hurriedly said, "I couldn't, I'm better standing." Zhao Hai stood and pushed Green into the chair. "Grandpa Green, you're from my grandfather's generation. You've watched me grow up. You can be said to be my senior. This time the Buda clan has fallen into such misery, and if not for you, I perhaps couldn't guarantee my survival. Don't stand on ceremony, sit. I really have something to discuss with you." Green sat down, looking at Zhao Huiyue, tears suddenly flowing as he muttered, I'll sit. Yes, young master has grown up, so thoughtful." Zhao Hai feigned a sigh, experiencing so much. "I should also grow up." "I'm sorry, Grandpa Green, I let you worry before, I won't hereafter." Green shook his head. "No, young master, don't say that. It was I who failed to protect you, letting such things happen to young master, letting the Buda clan fall to such a place." Zhao Hai shook his head, smiling wryly. "This can't be blamed on you. How could my father have listened to your advice?" "Fine, don't mention it, Grandpa Green. Do you know what magic beast on the continent isn't picky about food, grows quickly, and also breeds quickly?" Green looked a bit distracted by Zhao Hai's question, but this was still something he knew about, and so he at once said, "There are many such kinds of magic beasts on the continent, like the blue-eyed rabbits and long-haired pigs we raise. They are both considered first-level magic beasts, without any attack power. The time for blue-eyed rabbits to grow to maturity is just a little past 3 months, and after they're mature they can give birth on average once per month. Each litter will have no fewer than 5. Long-haired pigs have a longer growth cycle, roughly 8 to 10 months or so, after which they can reproduce once every 4 months or so. Each litter will have no fewer than 7. These two kinds of magic beasts are also the most common source of meat on the continent, and a lot of people breed them. Zhao Hai nodded. Which of these two magic beasts is more commonly raised? Green said long-haired pigs. Even though blue-eyed rabbits aren't too picky about food, but they are herbivores and generally only eat some plant leaves. Not like long-haired pigs, who eat anything. Zhao Hai nodded. He found that the blue-eyed rabbits Green mentioned weren't much different from Earth rabbits. He at once stood. Grandpa Green, didn't you say we bought blue-eyed rabbits? Bring me to see them. Even though Green didn't know what Zhao Hai was up to, seeing that he had finally started to become concerned about the family situation, he was still very happy. But he still said, "Young master, it's late, I think we should go see them tomorrow." "Young master, go back and rest a bit earlier." Zhao Hai looked at the color of the sky outside, and also felt he was being a bit anxious. Nodding, he said, "Fine, then we'll go take a look tomorrow." "But Grandpa Green, I noticed there still seems to be a lot of supplies in the courtyard. Why not bring them inside the castle?" Green looked a bit embarrassed. "Young master, it's not that we wouldn't, but the castle is too small. It really can't hold so much supplies, and so we're now having the slaves set up some wooden sheds to store those things." Zhao Hai nodded, looking at the color of the sky outside. "Then do the slaves all have somewhere to live? Right now it's already April, it will soon be the rainy season. It's fine to let those slaves have places to stay first. So few of the Buddha clan remain, we have to rely on them hereafter." Green's somewhat restless expression instantly improved. When Zhao Hai asked about the goods in the courtyard, he was afraid of Zhao Hai asking about those slaves. Because in the eyes of the continent's nobles, those slaves were worth far less than those supplies. If Zhao Hai thought the same, then he would definitely drive those slaves out of the castle, then store the supplies in the rooms. But Green knew extremely clearly that with the Buddha clan in its present state, and with the rainy season approaching, if those slaves were pushed outside they would very easily fall sick, and when that moment came they would be confronted with the predicament of having no people. But what Green hadn't expected was for Zhao Hai to actually think of this. This told him that his young master had finally grown up, and so he hurriedly said, "Please don't worry, young master. Everything has been taken care of." Zhao Hai nodded at this. "With Grandpa Green here, I can be relieved." "Fine, I'll return to rest. If there's anything, we'll talk tomorrow." After speaking, he left the room. At this moment Mirin and Meg walked in from the kitchen. Seeing Green sitting there with a moved expression, Mirin curiously said, "Old man, what's happened?" Green suddenly laughed out loud. "The young master has grown up, become sensible. Ha 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 ha, the heavens haven't forgotten my Buddha clan." Repeating his conversation with Zhao Hai just now to Mirin, he smiled. "The young master knows to care about the clan's affairs. This is a good thing. As long as the young master can properly manage the clan, even if the Buddha clan can't expand, it can continue on. No matter what, the Buddha clan won't disappear." Mirin was also unusually happy, saying expanding doesn't matter, as long as the young master is safe it's fine. "I think we're very good right now. When we were in the capital, even if the Buddha clan was well off, we were also too affected by people's eyes. Otherwise we wouldn't have been entrapped by those people. Now that we're far from that prison, leading our little days here is even better. The Black Waste doesn't have anything that anyone would come here for, so our Buddha clan is actually even safer." Green nodded with a small smile. "Right, that's sensible. That's why I bought half male and half female slaves this time, in order to prepare for the clan's later development. I don't want anything else right now, as long as the young master can be sage, and the Buddha clan continue, I will be satisfied." Mirin nodded, a smile on her face. Meg stood behind Miriam, and even though nothing showed on her face, her eyes revealed a trace of happiness. Zhao Hai could also hear Green's laughter. Recalling Green's expression right now, Zhao Hai knew why he would be so happy. Thinking of this, he couldn't help smiling wryly. He hadn't expected that he would just need to appear a bit normal for them to be so excited. It seemed that the previous Adam really wasn't any good news. Returning to his room, Zhao Hai didn't go to sleep. Maybe it was because he had slept too much in the daytime, but when he lay on the bed now his eyes were like light bulbs, not sleepy at all. After laying there for an hour, Zhao Hai still hadn't fallen asleep. Pondering, he still decided to go take a look at the space, and see how the radishes were doing. Entering the space, Zhao Hai just stared blankly. He hadn't expected that, just a few hours after planting, the radishes would actually already have grown such large leaves. They didn't seem far away from ripening. Zhao Hai stared blankly at these radishes. He really hadn't expected them to grow so quickly. Even if the spatial soil and water were said to be able to increase growth speed, wasn't this still too fast? Zhao Hai couldn't help walking over to the side of the field and pull up a radish for a look. He discovered it had already grown a small piece of radish, but because it had still grown for too short a time, the radish still wasn't large and would require more time to grow. Zhao Hai laughed and giggled, burying the radish again, then stood and muttered, at this rate, they might be ripe tomorrow morning. Then I can ask Grandpa Green to see if this place has something like these radishes, and in passing take a look at whether those blue-eyed rabbits will eat radish leaves. If they do, then I can open a pasture, ha ha ha.